Quick question before we get into this. When's the last time you stood in the bread aisle, picked up a loaf, flipped it over, and had absolutely no idea what half the ingredients on that label were? Yeah, thought so. Here's the twist. The healthiest bread you could put in your body this year has exactly 4 ingredients. No preservatives, no dough conditioners, no mysterious natural flavors. And it wasn't invented by a wellness influencer last spring. It was invented roughly 14,400 years ago by hunter-gatherers in the Jordanian desert who didn't even have farming yet. No fields, no domesticated wheat, no pottery. They baked bread before they had a single reason to, and when scientists ran modern lab analysis on what these people were actually eating, they found something that should genuinely embarrass most of today's cereal aisle. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you're getting 3 full recipes for this bread, and you're never going to look at a bag of barley the same way again. The most impressive part, first. I won't hide this part at the 30-minute mark like in other videos. Here's the single most impressive fact in this entire story, right up front. Barley contains more of a soluble fiber called beta-glucan than any other grain on earth. That's not a wellness blog claim. It's a claim strong enough that the FDA put its name on it. Food products with enough barley beta-glucan are legally allowed to state, right on the package, that they may reduce the risk of coronary heart disease, a genuinely rare distinction for a single food ingredient to earn. Here's what beta-glucan does once it's inside you. It turns into a thick, slow-moving gel in your gut that grabs onto LDL cholesterol, the bad kind, and carries it out of your body before it can be reabsorbed. A Health Canada review of the clinical evidence found that 91% of trials using actual whole barley grain, not extracts or supplements, showed a statistically significant drop in total and LDL cholesterol. One trial, using a concentrated dose, recorded a 17% drop in LDL cholesterol in a matter of weeks. Now let's talk about the food everyone assumes already won this competition. Oatmeal. Oats have spent 30 years as the reigning king of heart-healthy breakfast. Be honest, how many of you have eaten instant oatmeal this week, purely because the box told you it was good for your heart? In head-to-head clinical trials, barley consistently outperforms oats in post-meal blood sugar response. The reigning champion has competition, and it's losing. Speaking of blood sugar, here's a stat that should stop you mid-scroll. In the United States alone, more than 1 in 3 adults currently has pre-diabetes, and over 80% of them don't even know it. A huge daily contributor is the blood sugar roller coaster. You eat something high glycemic, your blood sugar spikes and crashes, and 90 minutes later, you're raiding the snack drawer wondering why you have 0 willpower. That's not a willpower problem. That's a chemistry problem. Barley has a glycemic index that can run as low as the 20s to low 40s, depending on preparation, dramatically lower than white bread, white rice, or most wheat products, which regularly sit in the 70s. In clinical trials, a solid dose of barley beta-glucan reduced post-meal blood sugar spikes by more than 20%, because that same gel also physically slows how fast sugar from food hits your bloodstream. It doesn't stop at your blood sugar or arteries either. That fiber becomes food for beneficial gut bacteria, specifically bifidobacterium and lactobacillus, tied to a well-regulated immune system and a healthy gut lining, which ferment it into short-chain fatty acids that actively reduce inflammation throughout your body. So here's the strange part. This grain, quietly outperforming oats, earning actual FDA health claims, feeding your gut microbiome, was, for most of human history, considered food for the poor. Nobody wanted it if they could afford anything else. Let's talk about why, because it changes how you'll read the rest of this story. quick question. What's the oldest thing in your kitchen right now? A cast iron pan from your grandmother, maybe, or a cookbook falling apart at the spine. Whatever it is, it's almost certainly younger than the recipe we're about to talk about by roughly 14,000 years. In 2018, archaeologists from the University of Copenhagen, Cambridge and UCL published findings from a site called Shubayqa 1, tucked into the Black Desert of northeastern Jordan. They'd been excavating since 2012, sifting through the remains of two ancient stone fireplaces. What they found in the ash changed the accepted timeline of human history. 24 charred fragments of bread-like food, radiocarbon dated to roughly 14,400 years ago. To put that in perspective, that's about 4,000 years before agriculture existed anywhere in the region. These weren't farmers, they were Natufian hunter-gatherers, the kind of people who packed up and moved with the seasons, following wild game and wild grain. Yet before a single one of them had ever planted a crop on purpose, they were grinding wild barley, wild wheat and wild oats into flour, kneading it into dough, and baking it on a hot stone hearth. That's a genuinely strange sequence of events. A bit like discovering your great-great-grandparents owned a toaster before they owned a kitchen. Making bread from wild grain is brutally labor-intensive. You gather it by hand, dehusk it, grind it with stone tools, then knead and cook it, all for a food that, calorie for calorie, wasn't even that efficient compared to just eating raw grain or the wild root vegetables lying around. One lead researcher put it plainly: bread making doesn't make obvious economic sense for a hunter-gatherer. So why bother? The leading theory is almost sweet. They weren't doing math on calories per hour, they just liked it. Bread might be the original comfort food, made not because people had to, but because they wanted to. Some researchers even think this early love of bread is part of what eventually pushed people toward planting cereal crops on purpose. In other words, we may not have domesticated wheat and barley to survive. We may have done it because we developed a taste for carbs and wanted more. By roughly 8,500 BC, farmers had bred a version of barley with a non-shattering Rach's grain nerd speak for a plant that holds its seeds instead of dropping them the moment they ripen, making harvesting dramatically easier. From there, barley didn't just spread, it took over. By the 3rd millennium BC, it was the literal economic engine of the entire ancient Near East. Here's where it gets genuinely wild, because barley didn't just feed a few desert villages, it fed empires. In ancient Sumer, cuneiform ration tablets from the 3rd dynasty of Ur, around 2100 BCS, record the systematic daily handout of barley to palace and temple workers, one of the earliest documented payroll systems in human history. Paid in bread, workers received a dense, twice-baked barley loaf called bapia, tough enough to survive travel without spoiling, like an ancient protein bar. Here's the twist. That same loaf doubled as the starter base for beer, so the world's first meal prep bar and the world's first six-pack were functionally the same product. Move over to Egypt, and barley was fueling one of the most demanding construction projects humans have ever attempted. Around 2050 BCEs, the laborers building the pyramids of Giza received up to 10 loaves of dense emmer and barley bread per day, along with low-alcohol beer, not because the pharaoh was feeling generous, because it was calorically necessary. You cannot move multi-ton limestone blocks on an empty stomach. Then there's Greece, where whole barley kernels were dry roasted and ground into a coarse meal called alfita, then pressed into dense travel bread called maza, and packed by hoplite soldiers on long campaigns, basically the original MRA. And then, my personal favorite part of this entire story, there's Rome. Here's a fact that will wreck the Hollywood image you have of gladiators in your head. Roman historians nicknamed gladiators hordearii, literally barley eaters. Pliny the Elder wrote about it directly, and for a long time it was assumed to be just an insult about cheap food. Then, in the 1990s, archaeologists uncovered an actual gladiator cemetery in Ephesus, in modern-day Turkey, and ran isotope analysis on the bones. The results confirmed it. Gladiators ate an overwhelmingly plant-based, high-carbohydrate diet built around barley and beans, with very little meat. Here's the part that should ruin every gladiator movie you've watched. Researchers believe gladiators weren't walking around with six-pack abs. Their high-carb, barley-heavy diet likely gave them a protective layer of subcutaneous fat padding that would have cushioned sword blows and reduced the severity of wounds in the arena. The shredded warrior look from the movies may be almost the opposite of historical reality. The real gladiators were carb-loaded barley men with a bit of a dad bod, and it was a competitive advantage. Roman soldiers received barley as standard-issue rations too, and a barley-only ration was sometimes even used as a documented punishment, since it was a step down from wheat, which tells you everything about the class system we're about to get into. The real land of milk and honey. Quick pop quiz, and I promise this one will mess with your head a little. You know the phrase, a land flowing with milk and honey, one of the most famous lines in the entire Bible. What do you picture? Bees. A honeycomb, probably a jar of golden honey sitting on a rustic wooden table, right? Here's the twist. That honey was almost certainly not bee honey at all. Bee honey did exist in the ancient Near East. Archaeologists excavating Tel Rehov in Israel's Jordan Valley uncovered the oldest known apiary in the ancient world, at least 75 hollow clay beehives, roughly 3,000 years old, capable of producing hundreds of kilograms of honey a year. But here's the detail that should catch your attention. Chemical analysis showed the bees weren't even local. They'd been imported from Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, hundreds of miles away. Because local bees weren't productive enough 3,000 years ago, someone was importing specialty livestock just to keep an industrial honey operation running. Bee honey was closer to importing champagne than buying sugar at the store. So when the Hebrew Bible uses the word devash, usually translated as honey, historians believe most everyday agricultural references actually mean devash tamarim, date honey, called Ceylon in the modern Levant, a thick, dark syrup made by slowly boiling down ripe dates. It was the primary sweetener of the ancient Near East, stored in ceramic jars, traded across the region, used in everything from flatbread to ceremonial cakes. The date palm mattered because Phoenix dactylifera thrives in punishing heat and salty groundwater, exactly the conditions in the Jordan Rift Valley and around the Dead Sea, where almost nothing else grows. For soldiers, traders, and pilgrims crossing the Judean wilderness, dates weren't a snack. They were survival food, calorie-dense and portable in a landscape that offered almost nothing else edible. Here's a story that sounds fake, but isn't. In the 1960s, archaeologists excavating Masada, the desert fortress where Jewish rebels made their last stand against Rome, found date seeds in a clay jar. They sat in a university drawer for roughly 40 years, until 2005, when botanist Dr. Elaine Soloway decided to just plant one. Radiocarbon dating later confirmed the seed was around 2,000 years old. Nobody expected anything to happen. 3 weeks later, it sprouted. They named it Methuselah, after the Bible's longest-lived man. And it's now over 10 feet tall. Here's the part that genuinely gives me chills. In 2015, Methuselah pollinated a modern female date palm and became a father, producing real fruit for the first time in 2,000 years. Fruit researchers described as having a distinct honey-like aftertaste. A 2,000-year-old seed, born again, quite literally producing something that tastes like honey. If that's not a land flowing with milk and honey showing back up uninvited, I don't know what is. So why does this matter for your health, beyond being a great story? Because date syrup behaves completely differently in your body than refined sugar. It sits at a glycemic index of roughly 47, compared to 65 to 70 for refined white sugar, thanks to a balanced fructose to glucose ratio plus dietary fiber, potassium, magnesium, iron, and vitamin B6 that travel with the natural sugar and slow its absorption. And unlike raw honey, which loses its beneficial enzymes the moment it hits oven temperatures, date syrup's minerals and fiber stay stable through baking, making it the ideal ancient sweetener for bread, discovered through trial and error thousands of years before anyone had heard the word glycemic. Let's connect this directly to Scripture, because once you know the barley versus wheat divide, you can't unsee it in the text. In the ancient southern Levant, wheat and barley weren't interchangeable. Wheat had more gluten, producing a lighter, sweeter loaf, and was treated as a luxury reserved for the wealthy and temple offerings. Barley was worth exactly half the market price of wheat, and that wasn't informal opinion. It was written into law. The Mishnah, the codified oral law of ancient Judaism, sets a man's minimum support for a separated wife at no less than 2 cab of wheat or 4 cab of barley per week, a direct statement that 1 cab of wheat equaled 2 cab of barley in value. Barley was the grain of the poor, the rural laborers, the families who couldn't afford the upgrade. That's exactly why it matters that in the Gospel of John, when Jesus fed 5,000 people on the shores of Galilee, the bread named is specifically barley bread, not wheat. The Gospel writer didn't have to specify the grain. Most retellings of the other Gospels don't. John does. And scholars believe that's not an accident. Even the harvest calendar reinforced the divide. The early barley harvest lined up with Passover, the festival of physical deliverance from slavery, while the later wheat harvest lined up with Shavuot, the festival of spiritual covenant. Barley came first, and it fed the people who needed feeding first. That same framework unlocks a land flowing with milk and honey, baked directly into Deuteronomy 8, which names the 7 sacred species of the land: wheat, barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olive oil, and honey, date honey. Almost certainly, every one of those except the olive shows up in the recipes ahead. For proof that barley bread carried real weight in Christian tradition, centuries later, a discovery that only came to light in October 2025, archaeologists at Toprak Tepe, in Turkey's Karaman province, the site of ancient Ironopolis, uncovered 5 carbonized loaves of communion bread, dating back roughly 1,300 years. To the 7th or 8th century AD, they were made with barley. One bears a faint carved image of Christ, shown not in the traditional commanding ruler of all pose, but as a farmer, a sower, with a Greek inscription reading roughly "with our thanks to the blessed Jesus," a barley loaf, stamped with Christ's image, preserved by the very fire that carbonized it, buried since before the Byzantine Empire fractured. The bread of the poor became sacred bread. It always had been. Why your barley bread keeps coming out wrong. Before we get into the recipes, I need to save you from a genuinely common kitchen disaster. If you've ever tried baking with straight barley flour and ended up with something closer to a hockey puck than a loaf of bread, I promise you, it wasn't you. It's chemistry. Regular wheat flour is high in 2 proteins, gliadin and glutenin, which link up when you add water and need to form gluten, an elastic, stretchy network that traps the gas from fermenting yeast and lets your dough puff into a light, airy loaf. You can stretch wheat dough paper thin, and it holds together. It has memory. Barley doesn't have that. Its main protein, hordein, forms a weak, floppy structure that behaves more like thick paste than stretchy dough. It tears if you look at it wrong. On top of that, barley flour is extremely absorbent, thanks to all that beta-glucan fiber, so it soaks up far more water than wheat flour before it even starts to feel workable. That's exactly why ancient bakers almost never made loaves out of pure barley. The Shubayqa flatbread we're about to make is unleavened for a reason. It doesn't need structure. It just needs to hold together long enough to cook on a hot stone. But for anything with real rise and crumb, ancient bakers blended barley with high-gluten wheat, letting the wheat provide the scaffolding barley can't build on its own. They also leaned on two clever fixes worth knowing. First, long, slow sourdough fermentation. A long ferment lowers the dough's pH through lactic acid production, which strengthens barley's weak proteins, improves gas retention, and prevents the gummy. Wet interior low-gluten bakes are famous for. The sourdough wasn't just for flavor. It was structural engineering, discovered by trial and error, long before anyone understood pHP. Second, a splash of red wine vinegar, a trick borrowed from traditional Cretan barley bread. The acidity independently reinforces the weak gluten, improves the rise, and keeps the crumbs soft instead of crumbly. Nobody centuries ago understood the biochemistry behind it. They just knew it worked, generation after generation, and now we know exactly why. Recipe. You've got the science. You've got the history. Let's actually bake something. 3 recipes. 3 completely different eras of this bread story. An everyday Iron Age family loaf, a ceremonial braided loaf built from scripture, and the oldest bread recipe ever documented by archaeology. Pick whichever one matches your mood, or just make all 3, and tell me which one wins. Recipe number 1, the Levantine sourdough Barley-Date loaf. This is the closest modern reconstruction of what an ordinary Israelite family would have pulled from the oven on any given day in the Iron Age. A rustic, leavened loaf on a 50-50 blend of whole barley and wheat flour, sweetened with date syrup, leavened overnight with sourdough. For the overnight pre-ferment, 100 grams active wheat sourdough starter at 100% hydration, 50 grams whole wheat flour, and 50 grams lukewarm water. For the barley flake soaker, 50 grams toasted barley flakes and 50 grams hot water. For the main dough, 250 grams whole barley flour, 200 grams whole wheat flour, high protein if you can find it, 320 grams lukewarm water, 100 grams natural whole milk yogurt, 20 grams date syrup, 15 grams extra virgin olive oil, and 10 grams fine sea salt. The evening before baking, combine the sourdough starter, whole wheat flour, and lukewarm water in a bowl. Whisk until smooth, cover, and ferment at room temperature, 20 to 22 degrees Celsius, for 12 to 16 hours, until bubbly and active. At the same time, toast the barley flakes in a dry pan until fragrant. Pour the hot water over them, cover, and soak overnight alongside your starter. In the next morning, combine the whole barley flour, remaining whole wheat flour, lukewarm water, and yogurt in a large bowl. Mix until no dry spots remain, cover, and rest for 30 to 45 minutes. This autolyze rest lets barley's thirsty beta-glucan fibers fully hydrate before you touch the dough again. Add 100 grams of your active pre-ferment, the soaked barley flakes, the date syrup, olive oil, and salt. Work the dough by hand for 8 to 10 minutes until it comes together. It will feel tacky and wet, that's correct. Resist the urge to add more flour. Will ferment for 5 hours total. For the first 3 hours, stretch and fold every 45 minutes. Grab one side, stretch it upward, and fold it over the center, rotating through all 4 sides. Then rest undisturbed for the remaining hour and a half, until puffy and aerated. Shape it gently into a tight oval, place it seam side up in a well-floured proofing basket, cover, and refrigerate for 12 to 18 hours for a slow, cold, overnight proof. When ready to bake, preheat your oven with a heavy cast iron Dutch oven inside it to 475 degrees Fahrenheit, 245 degrees Celsius, for a full 45 minutes. Turn the proof dough out onto parchment, score the top with a sharp blade, and lower it into the hot Dutch oven. Cover and bake for 30 minutes. Then remove the lid, drop the temperature to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, 205 degrees Celsius, and bake uncovered for another 12 to 15 minutes until deep golden brown. Cool on a wire rack for at least 2 hours before slicing. The crumb is still setting. Recipe number 2, Ceremonial 7-species date, and Barley Challah. Built directly from Deuteronomy 8. This braided loaf weaves 5 of the 7 biblical species into one bread: barley, wheat, date syrup, pomegranate juice, dried figs, and raisins, perfect for a holiday table, a Tu B'Shvat celebration, or any dinner where you want people asking what's actually in it. For the sponge, 120 grams warm water, about 43 degrees Celsius, 120 grams organic pomegranate juice at room temperature, 10 grams instant dry yeast, 125 grams high-gluten bread flour, and 12 grams kosher salt. For the final dough, 100 grams whole barley flour, 375 grams high-gluten bread flour, 100 grams date syrup, 100 grams extra virgin olive oil, 100 grams whole eggs, about 2 large, 50 grams egg yolks, about 3 large, 75 grams dried black figs, stemmed and chopped, and 75 grams dark raisins. You'll also need 1 egg beaten with a tablespoon of water for the egg wash. In a stand mixer bowl, combine the warm water, pomegranate juice, yeast, salt, and the 125 grams of bread flour. Whisk well, cover, and let it sit at room temperature for 1 to 2 hours until bubbly and fragrant. This is your active sponge. Add the barley flour, remaining bread flour, date syrup, olive oil, whole eggs, and egg yolks directly to the sponge. Knead on low speed with a dough hook for 8 to 10 minutes until smooth, cohesive, and just slightly tacky. In the final 2 minutes, add the chopped figs and raisins, transfer to a greased bowl, cover, and let it rise somewhere warm for 2 to 3 hours until doubled. Deflate gently, divide into 3 or 6 equal pieces, and roll each into a strand about 30 centimeters long. Braid tightly on a parchment-lined sheet, pinching the ends to seal. Cover and proof again for 2 to 3 hours until doubled. Preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, 175 degrees Celsius. Brush the braid with egg wash. Let it sit 10 minutes. Then brush a second coat for a deep, shiny finish. Bake on the middle rack 12 to 15 minutes. Rotate the pan 180 degrees and bake another 12 to 15 minutes until deep golden brown and hollow sounding. When tapped, cool completely before cutting. Recipe 3. The 14,400-year-old Shubayqa flatbread. The simplest recipe in this video, and arguably the most historically important. This is a direct reconstruction of the oldest bread recipe humans have ever documented. Just barley flour, water, salt, and a touch of raw honey, in keeping with the ancient tradition of sweetening flatbreads just slightly. You'll need 225 grams whole barley flour, with the bran intact, 120 grams warm water, 20 grams raw wildflower honey, 2 grams fine sea salt, and 15 grams extra virgin olive oil for brushing at the end. Whisk the barley flour and salt together, In a large bowl, make a well in the center, pour in the warm water and honey, and stir with a wooden spoon until a stiff, coarse dough forms. Knead by hand for 3 to 5 minutes until it holds together. It'll feel dense and clay-like, with almost no elasticity. That's Hoardine doing exactly what Hoardine does. It tears easily, so handle it gently. Wrap the dough in a damp cloth and rest at room temperature for 30 minutes, giving the starch and fiber time to fully hydrate. It'll become slightly more pliable. Divide into 4 equal pieces, and on a lightly barley-floured surface, roll each into a thin round, about 3 millimeters thick. Heat a heavy cast iron griddle over medium-high heat until properly hot. Cook the flatbreads on the dry surface about 2 minutes on the first side until golden toasted patches appear. Then flip and cook another 1 to 2 minutes. Pull off the heat, brush lightly with olive oil, and serve warm with extra honey and full-fat yogurt. Exactly the way it's been done for roughly 14 millennia. Here's what gets me every time I dig into this history. The people who first baked this bread had zero nutritional science, no clinical trials, no glycemic index charts, no FDA health claims. What they had was thousands of years of watching, generation after generation, what happened to people who ate this way, and they built their laws, calendars, sacred texts, and daily meals around what they observed. Modern science didn't discover that barley outperforms oats at managing blood sugar. It just caught up and confirmed what patient, observant people already knew for 10,000 years before the first peer-reviewed study existed. So, here's your homework. And I mean that genuinely. Pick one of these 3 recipes and actually make it this week. Short on time? The Shubayqa flatbread takes under an hour and connects you directly to the oldest documented baking tradition on the planet. Got a weekend and some patience? The sourdough Barley-Date loaf will produce something your kitchen has probably never made before. Got something to celebrate? Bake the 7-species Challah, put it on the table, and watch people's faces when you tell them what's actually in it. Drop a comment and tell me which one you're starting with: the flatbread, the sourdough loaf, or the ceremonial Challah with pomegranate and figs. I genuinely read every single comment on this channel, so don't be shy. And if this video changed how you think about a grain you've walked past in the grocery store 1,000 times without a second glance, do me a favor. Hit like and subscribe if you're not already. We post every week. And what's coming next goes even deeper than this. Genuinely, thank you for spending this much time with me today. Videos like this take a real amount of digging, and the fact that you stuck around means a lot. The bread that helped build the ancient world is sitting in a bag of barley flour in your kitchen right now, waiting. The grain hasn't changed in 14,000 years. What changed is that most people simply forgot what they were holding. Now you know. Go bake something.